Greetings, I'm Anne Skelton, Professor Children's Rights and Sustainable World at Leiden Law School. Today I'm in conversation with Professor Jonathan Todres. Professor Todres is Distinguished University Professor and the Catherine C. Henson Professor of Law at Georgia State University College of Law in the United States. He's renowned for his extensive work in children's rights, and his research also encompasses children's rights law, human rights, child participation and youth participation, and human trafficking. In addition to his academic work, he serves as an advisor to NGOs dedicated to children's rights. Moreover, he chairs the board on children, youth, and families of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine in the United States. In August 2024, Professor Todres was appointed rotating honorary chair in enforcement of children's rights for the academic year 2024-2025 at the Department of Child Law and Health Law of Leiden Law School. So let me start then, Jonathan, by asking you, what initially drew you to children's rights work?
Well, first of all, thank you, Anne, for having me for this conversation. What drew me to children's rights, I think the short answer is, how could one not be interested in children's rights? But for me, there are really two streams that led me to children's rights. First, my parents were born and raised in South Africa, and so the anti-apartheid movement was a big part of conversations right from my early days when I was very young. And I remember vividly trips to South Africa to visit family when I was young and seeing injustice and seeing whites only signs, and that had a profound effect on me and got me interested in human rights generally. And then, from my own childhood experiences, other experiences led me to be particularly interested in elevating the voices of young people, in supporting children and supporting them and helping them to realize their rights. So that's really where it came from.
So interesting connection there for the both of us having this connection to South Africa. You've been serving now as the rotating honorary chair in the enforcement of children's rights for almost a year. You're coming towards the end of this now. How's it been for you?
It's been wonderful. It's really wonderful. I remember my first trip to Leiden some years ago, well before the time I'm serving as chair. And when I arrived, I was only here for a 2-day trip to give a couple lectures. And I was just so excited by the sort of energy around children's rights at Leiden Law School. And I knew then I would look for any opportunity to come back. And when I was invited to be the rotating honorary chair, it was first an extraordinary honor knowing the sort of quality of work that's being done here on children's rights, to be a part of that. And then there's just something wonderful about now having the chance to have longer visits to Leiden, longer stints where I can spend more time with students. I was meeting students this morning to discuss their theses, and being in the classroom working with students is wonderful. And it's really an opportunity to start conversations and build collaboration with and look for common projects with faculty here. And so it's been a wonderful experience. I don't like that sound of you saying it's almost over. But I know the connections will continue well beyond this.
So what have you found the most rewarding about all of these interactions that you've been having?
It's enriching to hear other people's perspectives on children's rights. I like to be challenged, and so that's certainly been enriching. I think when you have opportunities in your life to do projects or to visit somewhere, I think you can think of those opportunities as sort of two types. They're the ones that are sort of, that's the sum total of the experience. You go and you experience, and it can be wonderful, and that's it. That's the end. And then there are others that are really an experience that is more akin to the beginning, and that's how this has felt. I've started conversations. I've had follow-on conversations with faculty about our mutual interests and what projects we could build, collaborations, and so. That's what's most exciting, and it's been with doctoral students and students who are in the advanced master's program, speaking with each of them and seeing where we might stay connected and build projects in the future. That's the most exciting part for me.
So Jonathan, you're on a board in the US that connects academia with policy and practice in children's rights. And what are you thinking now about how universities can play a role, and what role can they play in making those bigger connections?
Of course, for universities, foremost is the role of training the next generation of professionals who are going to work to support children's rights, to find more innovative and creative ways than we've found to implement children's rights. And so that's our sort of job number one, is to train the next generation and support them even beyond their graduation. But the second piece, as you note, I think the legal scholarship, the research part is critically important. And I think it's interdisciplinary work is really important. More recently, I've worked a lot with child development specialists and sort of finding ways to integrate children's rights with child development. And I think that's critical because at the end of the day, whether it's a government or an NGO, we need to know whether we are doing something effective or just doing something. And I think whether you believe we should know how to do something effective, if you think you want to be effective, then you need research. You need evidence-based research to guide how do you implement law? How do you understand law? What's the best way to implement programs that give effect to children's rights? And I think at the end of the day, whether you take the view that you are a strong supporter of children's rights, or you're somebody who just thinks government should be more efficient, if you want things done well and you want children's rights to work well, then we need legal scholarship. We need other forms of research and scholarship that will guide us in doing the work in the best possible way.
Mm. And within that sort of that perspective, what do you see as the major children's rights challenges today?
So, I mean, there's a lengthy list of challenges that we have, and in all countries, there's no country that's perfect at this point. But I think, and so whether it's short-term issues like some children facing challenges in situations of armed conflict or exploitation, or just denial of access to education or healthcare, or longer term, or maybe not so long term, but existential crises like climate change related issues. There's a range of issues, but I think there's sort of within all of these issues, there are two commonalities that I see. One is that I think as adults, we have not done a good enough job recognizing children's right to be heard and seeing them as partners. Children have expertise in their lived experience. Young people today are the only ones who know what it's like to go to school during a global pandemic. They're among the few who know what it's like to grow up in an era of social media. That lived experience has expertise, and we should be partnering more with young people to build programs to develop new law and policy that supports children and families. So I think that's one theme. The other, frankly, is political will. We have enough resources in the world today to ensure that every child can finish secondary education, to ensure that every child has access to healthcare on a regular basis. But we don't always have the political will to make that happen. And so I think that's something that we continually have to sort of build the case and show policymakers why investing in young people and investing in programs that support their rights really is valuable to children themselves, but also to their families and to communities and to the world.
And finally, Jonathan, what advice would you give our students and young professionals who are passionate about working in the field of children's rights today?
Yeah, so I'd say embrace the challenge. Sometimes this is, as I'm sure you know, Anne, as well, sometimes this work can be really hard. And sometimes there are moments that are discouraging and it's challenging. Sometimes these are really difficult things to change when you're reshaping institutions or you're changing government policy or you're changing practice, attitudes. That can be challenging. But I think there's something extraordinary about being part of moments where you're able to have successes. And just because you have some training, whether it's through the advanced master's program or another legal training, you have the opportunity to partner with young people, with their community, and help make their lives better. And that's extraordinary to be part of. And so I think that you have to embrace the challenge. It's not always the easiest work, but it's really rewarding. And there are other things that you can do in terms of building networks. And I think building networks are useful for professional reasons, but also just for support. Sometimes you need that support when things are tough. But I think first and foremost, embrace the challenge of, children's rights not always being easy, but being some of the most rewarding endeavors you'll ever be involved in.
Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us.
Thank you very much.